So hi everyone, thank you for joining today. I'm Samantha, I'm a product designer here at Canva, and I've been in the design industry for about 6 years now. Started off as a graphic designer, and then after 3 to 4 years transitioned into UX and product design. So I'm very excited, and I was very fortunate to join the Canva Design Circle community recently, and I selected 3 designs for today, which are Raphael's design on his business promotion, and Niti's design on a poster, and Lynette's design on a book board design. I'm really excited to share a few tips on how to improve design based on some of the key design principles. So hopefully you can take these into mind when you're designing next time. Feel free to pop your questions in the chat anytime, and Jess will be looking after those, and we'll go through those questions once we finish each design before we go to the next one. All right, so without further ado, why don't we get started with the first design? So this first design that you're seeing on the screen here is Raphael's design. And the goal of the design, I believe, is an advertisement to promote his business, which is a fast food burger restaurant. And what we're looking at here in the Canva editor is the original design done by Raphael. And he has done a great job in placing the key elements and information together. And today we'll be looking at 3 improvements that we can make based on the key design principles of hierarchy, alignment, and layout. So when exploring different options of design, I strongly recommend this to everyone to make a copy of the design by duplicating the page so that you can track and compare the design changes you make. So you can simply do that by clicking this button here, duplicate page. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this page. And the first improvement we can make is focusing on hierarchy. So hierarchy helps the viewer to know what to read first and in what order. And one of the key elements that affect hierarchy is font size. So you can see at the moment, currently it's unclear what to view first due to similar size text of the logo, as well as the number and the address here. So you want to make sure there's one thing that captures the viewer's attention first and foremost. In this case, it'll be this image at the very top. So what we're going to do is to reduce the amount of attention that the rest of the text take, we're going to simply reduce the font size so that it takes away less attention from the main image. So I'm going to ungroup this by clicking Command-Shift-G, and then I'm going to take this here, reduce the font size to maybe something about, maybe that's a little too small, 56 or 64. Feel free to play around with these, and also take this one to something a little bit smaller, to maybe about 56 as well, and this one to 48. So we can see already these texts are much smaller than the main image text here, which is the logo. And also we can see this logo font and the subtext are the same font. It almost makes it feel like this text is part of this big image here. And we don't want that to happen because we want the image to take away the first attention. So we're going to go ahead and move this, change this font to something that is consistent with the text below. And you can do this also by clicking the text, clicking onto this copy style, and then selecting your other text here. So now we have the text all in the same font, and also in much smaller size than the main image here. Now I'm going to duplicate this again before we go to the next improvement. And the next improvement that we're going to make is alignment. So alignment refers to where you place your text and other elements so that they appropriately line up. And it helps to create order, group things better, and improve readability. So what we're going to do first is we're going to align all the text. So first of all, I'm going to align all of these to left alignment here. So we can select this to make them all left aligned, and then have them all aligned together like this. You can also use this position align element and select left here, which I've already done and therefore is disabled. And we're also going to go ahead and align the images or the icons here as well. So I'm going to move this to the right-hand side a bit, and then bring this here and this here. And we're going to go ahead and align those two as well. And in order to align this, we can also align them by making the size of these more similar. So we're going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller in similar sizes, and then put them together like this, or maybe even make this a little bit bigger. So now we have our icon on the left-hand side aligned, and then we have our text aligned next to them. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to group the similar elements together. So texts are now all left aligned, which helps the viewer to read also in a consistent way, going from left to right. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this page again for the last improvement we're going to make, and that is our layout. When you think of layout, imagine a grid and how you're dividing the overall space. So right now, currently, we have 3 horizontal chunks. So one at the very top here, which is the image. And then second would be this information of your contact number. And then third is your address details here. Now, what we can do is try using both horizontal and vertical. So what we can do here is, instead of having them all left aligned here, what we can do is we can move our delivery details to the right. And then our contact details to the left. And what we can do also is see if we can bring these more like 3 different sections here. Just trying to, and to do this, I'm also going to make these a little bit smaller so that they fit quite nicely. And see if we can make this fit into 2 lines, such as this. Make this a little bit smaller, and then put them on the right-hand side. We can put this here, and I'm also actually going to make this a little bit smaller as well. And then align this with this here, and have them on the left-hand side. Another thing we can do is, for consistency, we can maybe have a title for both. So now that we've got this contact number here and this lot 80 address here, what I might do is take this and make some consistency between the 2. So one here is, maybe we can put a title here like order now, more of an action for the user to view and take. And then both of these, maybe I can put them into same color and have these 2 in the same color, so white. And then make these also consistent in terms of alignment and layout. Bring these more to equal spacing. And now we have 3 chunks here, right? One big one here, and then a left information, and then a right one here. We can also create a little bit of a space organizement by putting a line in between these 2, which helps them to look like they're one piece of information, as well as a division between the 2 types of information. And what I've done just then is I've pressed L to get a line. And then when you press to this dot here, you can change the angle of this line. And if you want to make it 90 degrees the other way, you press shift, and it automatically helps you to have a 45 degrees or a 90 degrees, whichever is the closest. So I'm going to put this right in the middle, take this down, and also have them a little bit closer so that they are equal in spacing. So now we have a big chunk of the big logo or the big key element at the very top. And then we've got the second piece of information on the side, and then the third information here. And feel free to play around with these in terms of how close you want to put it together, how further away you want to put it together. But as long as you have the equal spacing in between the 2, and then equal spacing on the sides, it helps to create that balance. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually have a look at the before and after, as well as the 3 improvements that we made. So I'm going to go ahead and full screen. So this was the original design, and this is the final design after 3 improvements. We're going to look at it one by one as well. So the 3 improvements we made are, we improved the hierarchy by making the sub information smaller with reduced font size. And then we aligned the text and the visual elements for better grouping and readability. And then we utilized the layout both horizontally and vertically to further improve the hierarchy and the grouping of the information. So that is your before and after. Now we're going to go to the next design. Before we do, are there any questions or anything that you're curious or would like to know more about? Feel free to I'll happily open up the chat.
Cool. We do have a question from Yvette. How are you selecting things all at once?
So if I want to select multiple things, it's actually very simple. You click onto whichever one to start off, you click your shift and then select the next one and then hold on to that shift and continue to select, and then you can select multiple things at once. To make it easier, you can also group them. So by drag and selecting the 3 elements or the number of elements you want to select together all at once very often, and then go Command G or Control G if you're using desktop Windows, and that will help to select as a group. And that way, even if I just click on it once, I can move all 3 elements at once.
Nice, thank you. We've got another question here. Do you know how they did the boss words, like the effect on?
So this is actually an image, as you can see. I can't ungroup this. However, this is a font that you can get from Canva. So what I believe Raphael has done is he's created this image as a separate document. He has then downloaded as a PNG image and then inserted it into here as a promotional banner or a document to use online. So if you go into text, you can see there's a bunch of these styles that you can play around with. So this is most likely one of these styles that Raphael has selected from. I actually think it's this one. Let's have a look. So I think he might have selected this, and then you can edit this text like you normally do with anything. So the boss, it's slightly different, but you get the vibe. And then feel free to change the colors, change the font size. It's just like any other text that you get, but just fancier and I suppose, more designy.
Brilliant, thanks. And then another question from Roxanne. With the font colors, is there a rule for font colors in a design?
Oh, that's a very good question. So font colors, there's no certain rule, but I do recommend to restrict the font colors to maybe about 2 to 3 if possible. At max, 4 is okay, depending on how much you use those colors. You do want to have a key color or 2 key colors. So in this case, you can see you've got the pink and the yellow as more of your key colors. And then you've got your sub colors, which also help to highlight any other information, which are less important than the key information that you're highlighting, like your pink and the yellow, which is your blue here. And often white and black are used really nicely in contrast to those highlighting colors to communicate any other information which is important, but don't want to bring so much attention to.
Brilliant. One last question from Maria. We know that that's an image that Raphael's brought in, but have you got any idea how he did that kind of burger mirroring effect? We can see that there's a kind of shadow.
Oh, so this is not too hard actually. You'd be able to do it as much easier than you think. So let's get some sort of image here. I'm gonna go ahead and maybe get a burger myself. So let's get a burger. Maybe this one. That's a bit of more of a cartoon one. Now, what you can do is you can copy this image, and there's different ways you can copy this. You can Control C, Control V, which is our usual favorite. Or the other way is you can select the image, hold on to Option, and then drag this image, and it actually copies it like this. And what you can do is you can rotate this. Ooh. So 180 degrees, kind of like what Raphael's done here. And then now you can change the transparency from 100 to something maybe around 25, I would say. So you can insert that number and you get this mirroring image now. Of course, with a real burger, that would look a lot more real, but you get the idea of how to create that mirroring image. And simply, it's just playing with transparency.
Very cool. Thank you so much. That's it for questions at the moment.
Awesome. So let's go ahead to the next design. Next design is by Niti, and it's an online poster to drive fundraising for women's health and hygiene in India. This poster is really greatly done by Niti, and there are only a few small improvements to make better use of, once again, hierarchy, white space, and color contrast. So like I did with the first one, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this page so that we can track and compare the design changes. And the first improvement we're going to make, similar to the first design, is hierarchy. To remind ourselves, hierarchy helps the viewer to know what to read first and in what order. So if we look at this poster here, there's 3 key information that you would want to communicate to the user first and foremost, which is the heading. And then you've got your donation link, which is very important because that's what you want people to do once they've read the poster. And then probably the logo as well to highlight what this is communicating on. So those are the 3 key information. And what we're going to do is increase the hierarchy of these 3 so that these 3 information pop first before you read the rest of the information. So what I'm going to do is, I think this is actually just a text for us to understand what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and link that. So think of it as, how would you communicate this to another person verbally? So the first thing you're going to say is, this is the key information. So you want people to read this first. And generally people read from left to right and top to bottom. So this text here is something that is more of a tagline to support the heading. So we're going to move this heading. So selecting these 3 by clicking shift to select multiple. I'm going to bring this forward. And then I'm gonna move this down here. It's getting a little bit cluttered, but we'll worry about that next. And we are also, you're reading the heading first, tagline, and then the informative information that supports all of the text that you just read. Now, the next thing is, you can see this logo here, but it's very difficult to actually read what it stands for. So we're gonna increase the image size, the logo size, to maybe about 10 inch so that it's nice and readable. So now I can exactly see what this logo actually has been written. And then the last part is the other piece of information which is critical on this poster is your donation link. And we want to bring this hierarchy much higher than being hidden or being cluttered with the rest of the information here. Now, one of the tips I can say is when you start a new section, it usually gets more attention and hierarchy. So by, let's say, you've got this red box here, and it's one big section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this into 2 sections. So one is your red text, and then we've got another section here now with white. Now that the text is currently white, so I'm going to change that to red just so that it's visible. And just with one change, you can see that this text now gets a bit more importance because it's the start of a new section. So with hierarchy, we've improved by first of all thinking about what is it that I want the users or the viewers to read first, which is the heading. So putting that first, increasing the size of the logo, and then starting a new section to highlight this key piece of information on donation link. Next is we're going to use white space. So white space for, you may or may not have heard this, but white space is pretty much any section that is unused. And it helps us to separate paragraphs of text and graphics and helps the design to look less crowded. And we can see right now, there's a lot of information cluttered onto one side, right? But especially more so because I've moved that tagline below. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the white spaces that are available here. The biggest white space that we can see here is this top right-hand corner because there's nothing there, no particular image. And then that's the main one that we can utilize. So what we're going to do is we're going to give some breathing space as you read the whole text. So imagine when you're talking to someone, you're not going to say the whole thing at once without taking a break, right? And it's exactly the same principle as you visually communicate. So you want people to take pauses at the right moment for them to consume the information they've read before moving on to the next one. So I'm going to move this up, selecting multiple using shift, move it up a bit so that I can utilize this white space here. And don't worry too much about how this is covering this beautiful girl's face. We can unlock, so you can see Niti's done a good job of locking this, which is really handy. I'm going to unlock this for a moment, take this and increase the size. So now I have a little bit more space on the right-hand side for the text as well. So I'm going to bring this up maybe a little bit more, as much as you want, as long as it doesn't interfere with the girl's face here. And then I'm going to bring this tagline below the heading because it is something that we want them to read together. And then take a moment of break using white space here before going to the next part, which is your information on how much impact you can have with 3000 and any other thing that you want to communicate along with it, which helps support your main tagline and the heading. And also you can see it's still a little bit crowded here, and there's a bunch of white spaces that you can utilize here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the image size a little bit, the height, and then utilize some of the extra space that now we get by moving this up. We can also move this section to be a little bit taller, and feel free to play around with this to see how much space do I want to have in between the different sections. And another great tip is if you want to check the dimensions between, or the width or height between the different sections, if you hold Option on Mac, it shows you all of the dimensions between the different elements. And that helps you to check, is it consistent in how much space I have at the top and at the bottom. So right now it's 2, 1.9. So I can move this up a little bit maybe, and maybe that will make 2 here as well as 2 at the bottom. So now I know that it's both consistent. And now with this, there's a bit of breathing space as you read the overall text. The last improvement that we're going to make is color contrast. So when you want to highlight some key information, which is the action, for example, that you want the viewer to take, in this case would be the donation link. You can use color contrast to really make that information pop out. So I'm going to go ahead and change this into a different color. Maybe, for example, I can choose black, or I can go ahead and maybe choose another color which has been used within the poster. So there's actually blue here, as well as this maroon pink. I can try those. So all of your document colors is always surface at the top within Canva editor. But you can tell this blue is a nice blue, but it doesn't have much contrast between the background of white. So you want something that's a little bit darker so that it has a stronger contrast. So I might actually use this blue here, which is also used in the poster. And that gives a little bit more of a pop as a different contrast of color. Another tip is, although alignment is really important, and you can see Nitis have done a good job of aligning all of the text to this right here, but sometimes breaking the alignment can really help as well, because it helps to create focus on a specific text or a specific element. In this case, we want the donation link to have a focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to break the alignment of this right alignment here by centering this. And as I move, I can use this guided line. I can also center this along with the donation icon, and that helps to create a bit more focus for this and a bit more attention and importance to this piece of text. And lastly, if you want to use a little bit more of a color contrast, what else you can do is you can also create another red line here so that this has contrast between the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and click L. I have a white line here, so I'm going to change that into the red. And then use this as a way to also break between the sections here. So rather than having one big chunk of red here, I can break it up so that this donation link has its own space and section, as well as this sub information to be at the bottom, which is of less importance, but still something that you want people to read. And we can make this actually a little bit taller so that the donation link is less squished here. Actually, bring this up. So now you can see the white space around the breaking of the alignment and the color contrast helps this donation link to pop out a lot more along with the rest of the information, but still have the hierarchy, right? With this heading being the first thing you see. So let's have a look at before and after. So let's start with the before and then the after. And if we look back at the 3 improvements we made, what we first did was we based the hierarchy on what you want the viewer to read first. So putting the heading first, increasing the logo size, and then using white space to separate out the content. So you have a bit of breathing space as you read along, and then making the information that is important pop with stronger color contrast. In this case, I used blue, dark blue to contrast with the bright red. So that is the before and the after. So that's the end of the second design. Before we move on, once again, I'm going to open it up to any questions or any thing that you guys wanted to ask.
There's another question about turning an image into a link, adding a URL to an image. Is that possible?
Yes, it's definitely possible. So click onto your image. And if you go to the top right-hand corner, there's a couple of different options here. What you want to click on is this one, which says link, and then you paste the link here. So right now I have actually multiple pages because I've duplicated the designs. You can select which page you want to enter the link to if you're going to have the link in between the same document, or you can just put in the actual link. So for example, canva.com, and that will take you to the external link. So you can link internally between different pages of the document, or you can link externally by putting in the link directly into this little text box here.
Amazing. That's all the questions for now. Thanks.
Awesome. So let's go to the third design. So it's last but not least. Our third design is a book board designed by Lynette for her novel Feeders. And this is a really interesting design by Lynette, full of character and story, as you can see, and with small improvements on hierarchy, which seems to be our consistent theme today. Font pairing and contrast, so we can particularly improve the readability for the text content. So I'm going to go ahead. So there's actually front and a back design for this. And I'm going to be making 2 improvements on the front page and then 1 improvement on the back. So first of all, I'm going to duplicate the front page here by clicking this duplicate page. And the first thing, like I said, is hierarchy that we want to look at. And once again, remembering what hierarchy does, hierarchy should make the most important information pop over the rest when you first look at the design. So as soon as you look at this design, there should be that one thing that captures your eye attention. And for this, if you think about what is most important, it's probably going to be this Feeders, which is the title of the book. And like I said, font size is really critical when it comes to hierarchy. So we can increase what's important and decrease what's less important. In this case, you can see the font size between the title and the author is relatively similar, or maybe the same actually. And we want to increase what is important and decrease what is important, but not as important as the one piece of information that you want the viewer to see first. So I'm going to click this. You can increase the font size by clicking onto the one of the options here, or by actually entering a number, but also you can just increase the size by doing this, and it automatically increases the font size for you. So I'm going to make this relatively big, center it again, put it somewhere that is in a dark background so that it's still visible. So that is much bigger. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to make this a bit smaller so that it doesn't compete for attention with the title. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller by clicking and dragging the corner here by maybe something into about this size. And we also want to center this. And if it's hard to center and you're not getting that direct guiding line, what you can also do is select the element, go to position, and then align to page option here. So here I'm going to click center, and that will automatically center this element to the whole page. So that is the first change that we can make. So now we can see that this piece of text is of much hierarchy than this text here, which is the author name. Actually, we might even make this a little bit smaller. And once again, center this. That's the first thing that we can do in terms of hierarchy improvement. I'm going to duplicate this again to go to the next improvement. So the next improvement that we can make is font pairing. And it's great that at the beginning of the session, Lynette actually mentioned she'd love to learn more about fonts. So font pairing, the goal of font pairing is to choose fonts 2 to 3 at max that create contrast in a complementary way. The reason for this is opposite styles can work actually very well together in creating balance and adding a layer of character. So think of it this way. So right now we have a heading which is quite tall and flashy. So we want this piece of text, which is a contrasting text, to be a bit more simple and shorter, let's say. So I'm going to go ahead and click onto this text. And there's a lot of different options here. And what you can do is you can even type the style that you want. So for example, modern, and you'll get a bunch of different options that are modern font styles. But let's say if you're not sure and you don't have time to go through each and every single font style option here, the simple fonts that are most to use, which you can try to remember and utilize, would be Open Sans and Monstrier. So you can see Open Sans already in the placeholder. So let's try Open Sans as a starting point, because that is a very basic font. And we can increase this. Or try another font, which is, I'm going to go ahead and try this one. It's a bit more basic. It does contrast with this, but of course, it's a lot bigger now. So I'm going to reduce the font size to something like maybe 56 or 64. I would say 56 to start us off. Now that we have this, and this font is actually much smaller and shorter, we can also move this around so that you don't necessarily have to cover this beautiful illustration that you've put together. What I might do is I might just move this a little bit above. Oh, unlock it first, and then move this a little bit up, which gives a little bit more space below, and then put the author name here so that you have this illustration. And then at the very top, you've got your heading. At the bottom, you've got your author name. And the author name is in contrast to this flashy, tall text font size and style, which is more of simple and short, so that you've got this font pairing, which helps to build character, but also adds a bit of more balance in a more interesting way. And then lastly, we're going to go to the back for the third improvement. So you can see this is the back page. This is a great design. The only thing is it's a little bit hard to read, especially towards this area here, as the green text overlaps with the green background. But we do want to keep this image because it is a beautiful illustration, which tells a bit of a story already. So what we're going to do is increase the color contrast between the text and the background. And a simple way to do this is by adding a transparent black layer above the image and below the text. So click R for rectangle, or you can go to elements and get a rectangle there as well, which is in shapes. But I'm going to go ahead and click R, get a rectangle, and then cover the whole page. Don't worry, the image is going to come back. So I'm going to click this color to change it back to black. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to transparency and maybe move this to something like 20 or 30. So now there's greater contrast between the background and the color of the text, while we still keep this image or the illustration below. And what we also can do is you can see the part that is least readable, I suppose, is this area here, right? And another way that we can utilize contrast is by moving this text more into the darker areas, and not by moving, but what we can also do is we can click onto the text and go into here for line spacing. And then I'm going to make this line spacing a little bit tighter so that it actually takes less of that page. So feel free to try out different numbers to see how that goes. So I'm going to start with 1. That's super tight, so I'm not going to use 1, but maybe increase that to 1.5. And see, as it moved up, it actually helps with better grouping. And also, now it's more towards the top half of the design, which has better contrast between the text and the background as well. If you feel this is a little bit too tight, you can increase this a little bit, so maybe to 1.7, and that still fits in quite nicely within the darker area of the design. So in total, we made 3 improvements, 2 for the front cover and 1 for the back. And let's have a look at those. So I'm going to share this in full screen. So this was the original for the front cover. And then we made this with 2 improvements. 1 for the hierarchy, for the main title to be what captures the attention first. And the second improvement was the font pairing to add a bit more balance and character to the book. And then for the back, this was the original. And we've added more contrast between the text and the background so that it's more readable with the color contrast of the green and the darker black behind the text. So those were the 3 improvements that we've made.
Amazing. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to you, Samantha. It was so clear and it was so great to get those insights into graphic design strategies. And I think that was a really, really clear, useful session. So thank you so much.
No worries, my pleasure. I want to say thank you to Raphael, Niti, and Lynette, and everyone who submitted their designs for this, and those of you also who joined today. I look forward to seeing you guys on Canva Design Circle, and feel free to apply some of the learnings from today for your future designs in Canva and share them in the Design Circle to showcase your designs and processes. And also, it's a great way to get feedback from other designers as well. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Absolutely. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.